Now, there's one thing about the human animal. If it has class, it has it. If it doesn't, you cannot give it to them.
This is The Law. Live audio wrestling with the latest news, info, and interviews from the world of pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, and the best of combat sports worldwide.
You broke the all-time record for the largest gathering of trailer park trash The Rock has ever seen.
I'm one of the biggest legend stars ever this God! And your teeth took that too tight too, Billy!
And I heard the news the next day. And I slept like a baby last night.
From time to time, we'll be bringing you what we feel were the best of our recent shows.
Like me or not, I didn't come up here to be liked. I came up here to get paid. And whoever you put in front of me, I'm gonna drop you down.
Yeah. Dummy. Yeah. Dummy. Yeah.
I've had them down there on the dirt. I know what it's like to eat out of garbage cans, man. I know what it's like to sit there on the street and do nothing. I know what it's like to fight.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Tidwell and Bradie Wedham.
Well. Good day to all of you. Welcome to The Law Live Audio Wrestling. I am your illustrious host. That means that I do it on the interwebs. Chris Tidwell, otherwise known as Notorious TID, and joining me each and every week, Bradie. Just because he's wearing new pants doesn't mean he can wet them. How you doing, brother?
That was unique. That was creative.
Yeah.
And that was very asshole-ish. How are you, sir? How is everybody doing this week after a long week? We had a long week from Sunday to Sunday. It has been a lot to take in.
Man, if you take a look into my eyes, you can tell that it has been a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of very late ones, including the last, to culminate in such greatness. Now, before we get into all of that, Bradie, I got to ask you about an event coming up.
All right.
I'd be remiss. You are the absolute stud of studs when it comes to knowing about this kind of stuff. So tell me about this right here. Tell me about this.
That is Destiny Wrestling, April 14th. They present The Clash with Kenta, Trent Seven, Santana, and a whole bunch of other names.
Hold on a second. Say that again. Who?
Kenta.
Wow.
Yeah, Kenta is coming to Toronto, man. And as far as I know, I think the front row is almost all sold out. VIP is almost all sold out. Get to the website now, destinywrestling.ca. It is at the Alliance Banquet Hall, which is like right downtown, apparently. And yeah, you can go to Revelry/event/The Clash.
It's unbelievable that somebody's been able to, in Toronto, put this match together with Trent Seven, Santana, and Kenta. I mean, if you're not excited about that, then you have no soul.
When is the last time that Kenta came to Toronto that wasn't a WWE? I don't remember. Maybe it was last week, but I don't think it was.
I don't know. That is one event that you're going to definitely want to get your tickets to, ladies and gentlemen. Now, that being said, we are got the
rundown of the week.
Wow. That's how late it's been, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk a little bit about TNA Wrestling, how to pay Sacrifice coming from Windsor. How did that go? Right. Francis Ngannou got back into the boxing ring against AJ, and it wasn't good, ladies and gentlemen.
It was fantastic.
Well,
I don't know what you watched.
It depends on which side of the spectrum that you live in. We're going to talk about We're going to talk about UFC 299, the winners, the losers. Where do we go from here? How did it all turn out? And what's next for some of these guys?
Before all of that, we're going to talk a little Sting / Darby Allen, because last week's episode we had recorded that morning, which was just before Sting's retirement match. And I want to get your thoughts on that.
You absolutely will. We're going to do that as soon as we come back from this break, and we're going to get this whole thing going. This is the Law of Live Audio Wrestling. I'm Chris. He's Bradie. We'll be right back.
Bitchfest, March 1st to 30th. Make sure you have your passes to Bitchfest, Toronto's most inclusive DIY punk fest. Bitchfest delivers 14 shows at over 9 venues, featuring over 50 of the best indie punk bands touring today. Every weekend in Toronto this March is Bitchfest. Follow at bitch.fest_Toronto on Instagram and get your passes today at fanatickets.com.
I just want to hear that music more and more and more. I'm Chris. He's Bradie. This is the Law, Live Audio Wrestling. What more can we say about it? Bradie, we had this past week, and you mentioned this right before the break. It was Sting's last match, his last hurrah. At 60-plus years old, he decided to finally call it a career. An iconic, illustrious, if any of you haven't gone back and listened to the previous episode where I sat down with Nikita Koloff, we talk a little bit about Sting. And the day finally came, and the match finally happened. And I'm going to ask you something here, Bradie. After all of the revelry, all of the buildup, all of the hype, you knew exactly how this was kind of going to go. What was the one thing that you remember from that match?
Darby Allen being dumb. Darby Allen is dumb.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you mean? You didn't remember anything that Sting had done? You didn't remember, like, the promo afterwards, very heartfelt, all of that kind of stuff.
What promo afterwards?
No big spots for Stinger.
No. I need to cut you off here for a second before you go off on a tangent. What promo? Because this is the first time, I think, in the history of not running overtime. AEW runs overtime every single week on pay-per-views, on weekly TV, on the internet, for fuck's sakes. Probably Tony has overrun time on this show, and we didn't even know it. The only time he doesn't go an extra 2 minutes is when it matters, when Sting is trying to say thank you for his career.
Well, so maybe he had to play back. Maybe he was like, paying it forward, and all of a sudden he had to pay off that debt. He had the big shipment came in, which was the crowd in Greensboro, right? And he was like, all that other little peddly 5s and 10 spots that you fronted me back in the day, I'm going to pay those off right now. No,
we talked about this last week, saying that, like, and even I think Big Daddy's Truth Bomb kind of alluded to the same thing, which was, they've handled Sting's career a lot better than the WWE has done overall. But that send-off was the wrong kind of send-off. I didn't like the opening with his kids. I think that was great. I just think it was shot really wrong. I don't think production knew what they were doing with that entrance, which we'll get into production issues later on a completely different company. I think there was a lot of things that should have hit well, and they didn't. And if it was in the hands of WWE, I think it would have been handled a little bit better when it comes to the presentation of his final match. But going back to what you originally said, the one thing that I take away from this entire match is Darby Allen doing stupid spots.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you take.
Well, I listen. We all know the spot that you're talking about, where it was clearly set up. Threw chairs and glass off of a ladder that, listen, I might get a little corny here for a second, Bradie, but none of that shit should be anywhere near a wrestling ring. A ladder I can see being near a wrestling ring. A table underneath the ring, I can understand you might need an extra one of those at a show. I understand chairs being under there. I don't understand, and I've been guilty of this in the past myself, but I don't understand things like, why do we have a plate of glass just laying around at a wrestling show?
Well, they had 3 of them.
Why is there cookie sheets? Why is there cookie sheets under the ring? That's always a good one for me too. Here's the thing, and this is something that I learned, like basically from Jack, from New Jack.
Okay.
Have conversations with him, is that you can have these types of matches, these garbage matches, and all of this stuff, and plunder and everything like that, and big spots and tables and glass and light tubes, and do whatever the fuck you want. Right? I think you're dumb, but do whatever you want. But if you have this stuff and it doesn't seem like it should be there naturally, why is it there? Why is it there unless you have this planned? And if you have this planned that far in advance, you're kind of peeling the curtain back a little bit too much. One thing that was always smart about what Jack did is he was always a fans bring the weapons, something like that. So he had a garbage can full of stuff. Somebody else brought it. I didn't have it here. It wasn't just meticulously laying underneath the ring, right? I brought this stuff with me to use. Anytime I see stuff being pulled out from underneath the ring, it's like, oh, well, spot time, ladies and gentlemen.
I used to love Raven's gimmick where he'd come down with the shopping cart and he always had the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
It became a joke at that point where we're going to have everything under the ring or everything in the trash can besides the kitchen sink. And no, we brought the kitchen sink.
100%. I worked a match one time against a guy by the name of Homeless Jimmy.
Homeless Jimmy.
All right. I think it was an XPW guy or something like that back in the day.
Okay.
And we were a hardcore guy. And we worked this stuff, and he's got this TV. This TV was probably about a 12 by 12, one of those little tiny ones, and it weighed about 3,000 pounds. You know what I mean? It was one solid tube. It was just disgusting. And he says, oh, we'll use this thing later. I said, okay, cool, no problem. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to put it under the ring. And I was like, why? Why is there an old busted ass TV under the ring? Why is there a Nintendo unit under the ring? It doesn't make any sense for it to be under there as part of the show unless you're looking to give away stuff. And by stuff, I mean finishes. Come on, people, be smarter than that. It's us against them. And I mean us by the business, them as the people that pay money to come and see the business.
The one that I love is where no one explains why is there a bag of Legos under the ring.
Right?
I've been involved in matches too where they've used this kind of shit, and you just gotta deal with it.
Okay, answer me this one. Here's the most common one nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. Why is there a door at the show?
Because the tables are too much money at Costco.
That's exactly right. Remember, we would get out of the point. You'd buy the table, you'd break the table, then you'd try to salvage the legs.
Every show, bro.
New top over.
Get the ring boy. So at the beginning of like every of these shit fucking mud shows, you'd see a kid like a ring boy. By the time the ring was done, he'd be taking the legs off of broken pieces or putting the legs on like a piece of plywood or some particle board or some dumb shit, right? Because guys are just too cheap to go out and buy fucking Costco tables.
Yeah.
Go to Home Depot, man. Or you know what you do? You go to those like furniture salvage places because they always have those beat up old, shitty work tables that you just take off that little lining and you're good to go.
Yeah.
$10-15 and you're laughing your ass off.
You look online, you go to auctions, you do those things. You don't buy new tables.
Dude,
and certainly don't buy doors.
We found chairs, like solid banquet chairs at like $1 a chair. For like 100 of them online. So like you can spend money wisely or you can spend money like you're a carny in the business. And I like the latter.
So is spending money wisely, buying these giant plates of glass so that a guy who clearly has a bit of a screw loose, if you ask me, can just jump off of high things through it and, steal the spot basically from Sting?
I feel like that's what happened. I don't think that was the intent by that young man, but I think he's, like I said, I think he's dumb. And I think he thought, hey, if I do this big spot and I die for Sting, then I did this for him. And this is my gift to him, is me putting myself through this shit. In reality, what it does is it ruins everything that you guys just did. It leaves people with either bad taste in their mouth or a image of that outside of Sting. And now just potentially by the time that this airs, a week afterwards, he could be frozen on the side of Mount Everest. So I don't know what he was doing, if that was his goodbye to AEW, because he cut a promo this week, a very bad one, if I may add, where he fake cried the whole way through. And if he didn't fake cry, he's one of those annoying crying kids in daycare. Remember those kids in daycare where you just wanted to slap those little fuckers. I still want to, and I'm an adult.
Darby Allen is emo as fuck.
His favorite band was Rise Against growing up.
You know what I mean? Not by choice, not my choice. Okay, this is what I'm saying. Listen, Darby Allen is going to climb Mount Everest, he says, or he's going to attempt it anyways. I know people that have climbed Mount Everest, and I'm talking climb Mount Everest, the face back in the day.
So not with the group, the 1,000 people going up in a line.
No, not the trail with the rope that you just kind of do the thing. No, they were talking back in the day. We're talking when I was in grade 9, I want to say.
Oh, shit. So that's like 100 years ago.
1932.
Yeah.
And yeah, somebody that I went to school with, her dad actually climbed the face. His name was Chris Kopczynski. Climbed the face not once but twice. So I get it. That's a daunting task. Is Darby Allen? This isn't like jumping a truck over a house or something like that. This is way different. But again, Darby Allen trying to make a name for himself missed the point on the Sting match, if you ask me.
I don't know anybody that's climbed Mount Everest, but my cousin was the one that kept going over the falls in the barrel. Then they let him out of jail, and he just got back in the barrel and went over again. He's that guy.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen.
So I've got a Darby in my family, too. And he's dead now for being dumb.
Yeah. Dumb Allen is definitely not. Listen, let me ask you this. You talk about that retirement. You talk about that retirement match with Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. What's the moment in that match that you remember?
Sorry, I love you.
It's the sorry, I love you into the super kick, right? That's a moment that we remember. But when you talk about Sting's last match, the only thing you're going to remember is Darby Allen jumping through glass and shredding his back.
So we had two friends that did a career versus career match a couple weeks ago. And their finish of the spot was the guy who was going over was like, sorry, I hate you. So they basically reversed it, and that aired. And the same night, the Young Bucks do the sorry, I hate you. Now, is that a coincidence because that's just a good spot, or did our friends get ripped off?
I think it can be a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. You know, to think that like bigger companies don't have some kind of a pulse on,
they always are
on the indie level. Yes, because the people on the indie level are trying so hard to come up with something to get them noticed.
So you take it from just from the music standpoint, Jay-Z and Eminem, both of them have admitted that throughout the YouTube and SoundCloud years, that's what they do. They try and find a rapper who has no following, no listens, no plays, and they listen to their shit. And that's how they stay in tune with what's going on and what could be the next kind of tip of the iceberg. And they focus on that. So that's a portion of their research when they're putting an album together. So I think wrestling is very similar. There's people watching everything. Absolutely. Good, bad, everything.
Yeah. Now, speaking of bad.
Yeah, let's move on from this.
And speaking of watching things that turned out even worse this past week, it looks like TNA had Sacrifice or Sacrifice or whatever you want to call it, emanating from Windsor, the hometown of BCW, owned by one Scott D'Amore, the former president of TNA Wrestling, if you remember. And everybody thought this was going to be, oh shit, they're going into Windsor. This is going to be a flop, blah, blah, blah. Well, turns out it wasn't. It's a great house. Fantastic house. People showed up in Windsor like they always do for wrestling. Like on these bigger shows, Windsor shows up, man. And the boys and girls did great in their matches. They did absolutely everything that they were supposed to. I noticed right away, and I messaged you right away, and I said, is it just me, or are they using 4 different cameras to shoot this pay-per-view right now? And they're all on different settings, it seemed like.
We had a lot going on.
It was unbelievable. And then you look at the production issues with the glitching, and the sound was there, but the video was bad. Their feed, however they were doing it, was not coming across well. This was just another stutter step, another stumbling block, right? In the road that is TNA, it seems like, and it's got to be so frustrating for the guys and girls working their asses off trying to do it when this is clearly stuff that's out of their control.
I swear I was worried about people messaging me saying, hey, wait a second. TNA's in Windsor. The Law used to anthem. Are Chris and Bradie running production tonight for TNA Wrestling? Because that's the only explanation as to why this is so goddamn bad when it comes to a production standpoint.
Yeah, it just didn't look good. It looked like they hired a bunch of students, first-year students, to run the equipment. And you feel bad for the performers because,
it's a
they're
shame.
going out there trying to do it. And if you can't put the proper type of clothing on this pig, what's the point of putting the pig out there?
So what was your big highlight throughout the entire night? Just take one. What's one thing that you want to talk about outside of production? Something positive from TNA Wrestling Sacrifice.
Here's the thing that I noticed. Josh Alexander really loves a headlock. Man. And I love Josh. You know that. We all know Josh is a very good friend. The one thing that I did notice about TNA and the pay-per-view and the work that the guys and girls all did there was they've got a absolute stud in Dolph Ziggler, in Nick Nemeth, whatever he's going by right now, right? I don't understand why they wasted him right out the gate in the first match. I think you could have had him a little bit later on and got a lot more out of that match.
No, that was him doing the TID technique. He was in the back and he's like, I'm getting in and out early. What time does the pay-per-view start? 8 o'clock? Sounds good. I'll be in the showers by 8:16.
If you are into just nonstop spot go, then you have to go back and watch that 6-man tag with the Kushida and the Motor City Machine Guns.
You were only allowed one highlight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll take that one back then.
Yeah.
Don't go back and watch that if you like to see really fast stuff.
My highlight was watching our buddy George eat shit on the rant.
Oh, my back.
If anybody does, I apologize, George. Former owner of Destiny Wrestling, our friends over at Destiny. George is the champagne pourer for Young Oilole or whatever her name is.
Well, listen, it's his own fault. It's his own fault. They sat there and just kept pouring champagne in the glass, and then the spot comes and champagne has to go flying someplace, and so it ends up all over the ground where somebody's going to slip on it. So Karma decided to just jump right in and say, you know who's going to slip on this, George? You.
Poor George. Here's the thing. I've known George for a while. He can't sell that well. That he legit I feel so bad for you, buddy, but that was the highlight of my night. It was a fantastic portion of the pay-per-view. It's going to be on repeat forever in my household, and shouts out George. So
well, he did it. He did one of these things. It was perfect. What he did was he slipped, he fell, he grabbed his back, and you could almost see it where he was like, oh, George, you okay? Spinal. What? My back. I broke it. I broke my back. And if you know where that's from, ladies and gentlemen, you know that that's a Mike Tyson reference, and Mike Tyson is a boxer. So let's move right over here, shall we? Because Friday we also had a main event that went on. If you're living in North America, it went on at 7:00 p.m. The main event finally went on Eastern time. Which meant that the people living on the West Coast of the United States and Canada had this thing start at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Motherfuckers were on their way home and stuck in traffic watching Ngannou getting knocked out.
Well, you know what? And if anybody thought that they were going to be able to make it home in time, they didn't, because not one round. No. Francis did a lot better than that. He went two, well, not even quite 2 rounds with AJ. AJ came out. Listen, Anthony Joshua came out looking like he had borrowed his ring attire from a Hyatt Regency. And it looked like a bathrobe with the logo on. It was very, very clean, very professional, very corporate looking Anthony Joshua. No flash. You know what I mean? No gimmicks, no Deontay Wilder 900-pound suits, no fanfare, no funny, suit jackets with no shirt underneath like Tyson Fury. No, none of that.
He came there to do a job.
Came out, yeah, and the job he did. Wow. Listen.
Disgusting right hand.
Listen. And he needed that. Anthony Joshua needed that. Boxing needed that, because the theme throughout that entire show, it seemed like, boxing's got to step up, man. This guy, he's still an unknown. What he did to Tyson Fury and going that whole, distance and dropping him, blah, 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 all of this stuff. And Anthony Joshua came back and said, y'all must have forgot about Dre, because he showed up and dropped Francis Ngannou on his butt, and then gave him the opportunity to stay down. Francis said, I'm going to get back up. And then AJ just put his lights out.
So the first knockdown, I chalked it up as, oh shit, everybody's going a little too hard here. Francis, slow down, take a breath. The second knockdown, I was like, well, this is done. Mm-hmm. By the time that the ref had walked away from Francis that second time and said, are you okay? And he looked off to the right and said, yep. He couldn't even look at the ref in the eyes and tell him he was okay. It was over.
Yeah, he got hit so hard that he ended up with atrophy disease.
Well, this is the very first time I think Francis felt power from somebody. I think it's the first time you ever get punched in the face. You know that old saying, you only act like that because you've never really been punched in the, in the face. Yeah, that's what happened to Francis.
Here's the question then, Bradie. Did Tyson Fury not take him seriously?
No, Tyson Fury ate Tyson Fury before he went into that fight. He ate the equivalent of 4 buckets of ice cream and thought, oh shit, here comes an MMA guy. I'm going to just sleep him. He's a big, slow, klutzy kind of a dude. I've fought monsters my entire life. I'm going to sleep this guy, or I'm going to run through an exhibition with him. That's what happened with Tyson. And if Tyson gets through Usyk, it sounds like they've already got the rematch booked for October, win or lose, which is so stupid. I hate that they're doing it. And we're going to get into the details real quick about how boxing is degrading itself in the sport with doing shit like this. But if you were to see Tyson take his training camp seriously and get through Usyk, I think Tyson and Joshua for the first lineal real belt in probably 20-something years is going to be the fight to make, the fight to see, the fight to close out this generation of boxing.
Sure. Yeah. The problem is we've been trying to do this for the last 3, 4, 5 years now.
Almost 6.
They were going to do this before.
Yeah.
And then Joshua fought Usyk, and look at what happened. Derailed that entire train.
Andy Ruiz or whatever too, right?
Andy Ruiz fight, right?
Yeah.
It derailed the entire train. So we're trying to build that back up to get to that, because you're right. The biggest money fight is in England, O2 Arena, packed house, right? Between Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury.
My body starts shutting down just thinking about that fight, man.
It's unbelievable. You know, that's where they should do it. They won't. They'll do it in Riyadh because that's where the money is going to be for it. Who we kidding? You know? And speaking of money, and speaking of boxing, and speaking of pieces of shit like Jake Paul.
Yeah, we just got done talking about this last week, and we're eating our words now.
Because it looks like it's been announced that Jake Paul is going to fight Mike Tyson, ladies and gentlemen. And listen, stop. Jake Paul needs to absolutely stop. Not fighting. Do that. Do you, boo. But what you have to do is stop trying to make people believe that you're in this to be a champion, to win a championship, no, you're not. You're in this because you like boxing. You're in this because you want to box and make lots of money. And you're in this because you want to fight people that you know you can beat because it puts yourself over, because it's also doing it for your company. You are the fucking equivalent, Jake Paul, of an indie promoter who puts the belt on himself. This is disgusting. Let's leave Mike Tyson alone. He worked so hard to get his image back up to where people could actually like him. I don't know if you remember or not. Mike was in a little bit of trouble with the law not too long ago, right? But then Mike came back and he did this little movie called The Hangover, and you know, he became beloved again. And now you're going to drag this guy. You're going to show everybody that Mike Tyson maybe doesn't have the money that he deserves to have right now because of all of his dealings in the past with Don King, but that's a different story. So you're going to throw this money out there and have this fight, and you're really just going to go out there and trade punches with a 57-year-old man? A 57-year-old man who on the streets would bite your fucking face off. But in this setting, listen, you know for a fact you're younger, you're faster, you're stronger. Cool, we get all of that. But what you're not is being taken seriously as a boxer as long as you continue to do this kind of stuff.
I don't think it's about that anymore. I think he knows he'll never be taken. It's not. It's about money, and it's about drawing attention. It has nothing to do with boxing. And thank God, because boxing doesn't have anything to do with boxing anymore. I am so sick of boxing. If you were to call me this week and say, you know what, the law, live audio wrestling, we are not covering boxing anymore. We're not covering celebrity fights. We're not covering exhibitions. We're not covering money fights. We're not covering championships. I would say, Chris, let's just fill that gap with one or PFL or whatever we can, because I am so sick of the sport of boxing. Now, I was born in 84, which means I was born around the same time that Tyson blew up. Okay? This man was already a legend by the time I could even walk. And 40 years later, I've got to watch him get into a ring with a steroid monkey-ridden kid where there's going to be a no knockout clause. There's going to be a no knockout clause guaranteed in that contract, and I think he's going to end up sleeping Mike anyway. It's a horrible fight. It's a horrible world to live in, where Mike Tyson is going to be fighting Jake Paul. But when that fight hits, when that pay-per-view starts or that Netflix special starts, I will be glued to that screen with popcorn and root beers and everything else that makes me feel good, because as much as I hate it and as much as I don't ever want to talk about it again, how the fuck could you not want to watch that?
Listen, if Jake Paul is trying to do everybody a favor in the world of boxing, and by fighting somebody who's clearly past their prime in the world of boxing, if you want to do us that favor, Jake Paul, don't fight Mike Tyson. You go out there and you beat the shit out of Oscar De La Hoya. Could you please? Maybe do that one instead. Okay? Leave Mike alone. Anyways.
I'm waiting for the Ryan Garcia Oscar fight. That's gonna happen here soon too.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. That's the
co-main.
That's the Dana White, Tito Ortiz. That's the Vince McMahon, Steve Austin. We're gonna have Ryan Garcia and Oscar De La Hoya.
And I'm going to put it out there. Actually, this week, we're going to do a little special. It may only be 10 minutes or so, but we're going to talk about Garcia. We'll talk about this Jake Paul, Mike Tyson thing in more detail. We'll go through some of the details of what's going on in terms of that, which is hilarious because I just got done saying I don't want to cover boxing anymore. But Ryan Garcia is something that we do need to talk about in detail. I'm worried about the young gentleman. I think a lot of people are worried about that young gentleman, and it would be a disservice to our listeners to not do something on Ryan Garcia. So
it would literally be a slap in the face.
Yeah. Okay, now
slap in the face.
Before we take a commercial break, yes, let's talk about a quick slap in the face. Friday night, we had see, this is what Tony should have figured out what to do, was when they knew they were getting down to the last 2 minutes here, you had the cameraman, you had directors, you had the timekeeper, you had the referee, you had everybody going to rock. Get this done. Get this done. And what they did get done in the last 10 seconds before SmackDown went off of the air, the credits had already rolled. Cody Rhodes gets his receipt.
Unbelievable. It's great writing. It's great production. It looked fantastic. It excites me even more about this WrestleMania weekend because, like I said before, WrestleMania, oh my God, trying to stay up for 2 days. That's a tough task. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The WWE has figured out a way to keep you up for 2 days. And this without Cialis.
Hey, I'm Big Daddy Donnie DeSilva, and it's time for another Truth Bomb. Time after time, AEW goes out and pays top dollar for the hottest free agent on the market. And after a few months, once that shine has worn off, they just sign someone else. It wasn't that long ago that WWE Hall of Famer Edge signed with AEW, prompting that fan base to say, well, now WWE is screwed. And 4 months later, Adam Copeland is just another guy on the roster. And you could say the same about Bryan Danielson, Malachi Black, Claudio Castagnoli, Miro, Jay White, Shibata, Ibushi, and so many others. This week, Kazuchika Okada debuted, and more than ever, AEW's biggest weaknesses show their face. Lack of production, lack of promotion, and lack of writing. When Okada walked out, here's what the announcer said, verbatim. What the? The Rainmaker! Kazuchika Okada! I can't believe what I'm seeing here, guys. What is he doing here? This place has come unglued. And then some stuff about him attacking Eddie Kingston and what a big blindside it was. They didn't say who he was, where he was from, the fact that he's been in AEW before, why it was such a blindside. They didn't talk about the fact that he's been rumored to have been a free agent, the fact that he has prior history with the Young Bucks. Does he have prior history with Eddie Kingston? They just acted like everyone should mark out. And in fairness, that's exactly what the AEW faithful did. They marked out. The problem is all the fans in the United States and Canada, for that matter, that love Okada are already watching AEW Dynamite. They had this segment posted to their socials within minutes, and the feedback was overwhelming. You had casual fans responding, saying things like, who? Or another guy who they don't explain. The diehards love to yell at these fans and say, do your research or Google him. You don't know wrestling. But the bottom line is, it's the wrestling promotion that should be doing the promoting. Leave it up to the fan to go search YouTube or do their homework. If this guy is truly the best in the world, like fans say, why wouldn't the announcers yell that when he's making his shocking debut? Why not quickly mention that he's been the biggest star in New Japan and now he's chosen AEW? Why not run off a list of mainstream names that he's worked with, guys in your company, or hell, be edgy and throw out some WWE names like AJ Styles or Shinsuke Nakamura. And then the casual fan can connect and say, oh, I guess he's a big deal, instead of he's doing a Cody Rhodes cosplay. The reports are that Okada is earning $4.5 million per year. And for AEW to get value on that investment and the investment they've made on dozens of others, they need to do a job, not just a better job, but do a job when it comes to character introduction, character development, and storytelling. Stop expecting that the company that person left did all the work for you, and now fans should just know who this person is. Stop just marking out to be a matchmaker. Do some story development, do some character development. Because if you don't, you will earn exactly 0 fans. And that huge financial investment is going to feel really silly. You don't have to agree with me, but it's the truth.
Do you have a podcast? Are you looking for high-profile guests for your show but don't know how to get in touch with them? Go to podstars.net. That's podstars with a Z.net. For less than $9 a month, you can get access to a huge selection of celebrity guests, like wrestling superstar The Blue Meanie, to musicians like Marty Ray, and even actors like Tom Arnold. Podstars is the place to go to connect with everything you need for your podcast. So go to podstars.net with a Z to get signed up. At podstars.net, you'll be happy that you did.
And we're back. This is the Law of Live Audio Wrestling. And you know what? Another exciting truth bomb. Like it or not, it's the truth from Big Daddy.
I wasn't listening. What did he say?
Words. He said words and talked about, how production and how promotions need to promote.
Oh, well, yeah, no, that's a good observation.
Speaking of promotions and the promoting, Bradie, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about UFC 299, the one sitting smack dab in the middle of the big three, as they tried to call them, 298, 299, and of course, all culminating in the big 300.
We had retirements, we had finishes, we had crazy knockouts from start at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, I guess, Eastern Standard Time, until the end of the night. Fantastic event all the way through. They had a $14 million gate. They beat their own record. Outside of Connor, it's one of the highest pay-per-views and gates of all time. So Sean O'Malley is finally, officially, a superstar. Absolutely. If you are what you say you are, a superstar, then have no fear, because Cheeto Vera's face is here.
Yeah, that literally looked like he was just hitting a punching bag, basically. The ability that Sean O'Malley had the ability to just move Cheeto where he wanted to. His striking was absolutely on point. Now, we'll get to all of that in just a very quick second. Let's start at the very beginning of this thing. I don't know about you, but this very first fight, Joanne Wood going out there and retiring on top. I've been a fan of Joanne Wood since she was Joanne Calderwood when she first got into the UFC, because there's just certain people in the sport that you have to adore. And she's one of those people, because you look at her and she's throwing bombs at you. And then they ask her a question and she sounds so nice and sweet and little. She's
going to give you a spot of tea while you're reading your Charles Dickens books on the porch.
But she has this super high voice where she sounds like I'm drawing a blank now on her name, but it was one of the characters from Police Academy, Hooks. I think I want to say it was Hooks was her name. She had that voice because JoJo has just been awesome, fantastic, and she comes out victorious in this fight. You couldn't ask for a better way to go out. This is what started off the pay-per-view. These two ladies got after it, man. Holy crap, what a fight. And then all of
the rest of the night
and all of the prelims nailed it. Just came out to deliver. And then we talked about the main card. Main card comes around and you're like, okay, what are we going to do? Right? What was your favorite fight of the night, Bradie?
Oh, it's got to be the Benoit Saint Denis Dustin Poirier fight. There was something about that co-main, but I honestly, I think there was maybe 2 fights throughout the night that I wasn't a huge. Even the fights that I didn't like, I liked. Like I think this is probably, and we called this for months. This may have been from bell to bell the best event that we're going to see all year.
Yeah. Now, do we talk about your picks at all?
No, we don't do that, because I went 7-7.
Oh wow!
That show. No, I didn't bet. So thank God. So if I was betting, yes, I'd be upset. But I like these nights, and it's the reason why I didn't bet on the card is because I love the unpredictability of fights that are this jacked. It's hard to go, 13, 14 and 0 like we've done some nights. Right?
Yeah. This one had a lot of variables out there. I went a respectful 10-4 on the entire
Which is fantastic on a card like this.
It's awesome because here's the guy that's spoiled it for everybody. Father Time said, we're not ready for you yet, Mr. fucking Dustin Poirier. And Poirier, who came out there and was getting his ass handed to him in that first round. The only thing he could do was jump guard for that guillotine.
Dude, Mike Brown in the corner after the first round, he's like, don't fucking try and pull that guillotine again. Sure enough, the second he gets out there, and then they're asking him in the presser last night. They're like, yo, so, the guillotine. He's like, every time I'm going to go for it. I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to go for it every time. He goes, I've never won with a guillotine, but that's why I keep trying.
But he keeps trying. It's fantastic. And Dustin Poirier showed that if you want to stand in a pocket and box with a dude, he's willing to die at any given moment. It's good. He's definitely a dude who bites down on that gum shield and says it's either me or you. But let's find out right here and now.
Well, we found out Benoit Saint Denis needs to go back to the drawing board for a bit and polish up some of that striking because he did look very slow and methodical when he was going into his strikes. Like his strikes all just led to crotch sniffing. He was trying to get him to the ground, right?
Now he had said apparently prior to, and it had gotten out there, he had been dealing with what could possibly have been a staph infection because he was on antibiotics. He was on antibiotics for the week before. Clearly he got cleared, right, and was able to fight. So
that could explain the sluggish. He had a bit of sluggishness to him.
Now, let me ask you about the sniper that is one Michael Venom Page. We saw him make his debut against Kevin Holland, and we talked about this off air, you and I did, and what I felt was going to happen, and it's pretty much exactly what happened.
Yeah, Michael Venom Page is realistically in a completely different world than a lot of these MMA strikers. It's almost like a proton. It's just like it's somebody that comes from. So his karate strike point system that he's used to gives you that ability to fly in and fly out. We don't see anybody else outside of Wonder Boy doing stuff like that. And even then, he's doing twice the movement that Wonder Boy is.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with the fact that like Michael Page is such a long fighter to begin with.
He's unique.
So he has the ability, when you think he's that far back, you're like, why is he that far back? And as you're fighting him, you're like, there's no, like, I got to try to move in to get close to him enough. And then what ends up happening is, boom, he takes up that space because the way that he stands with his hands down, you don't realize how long he is. And he's on you before you know about it. That's why he had the ability to throw the shot, smother at the same time, and then get that trip in there as well. Nice technique, nice snazzy technique. Here's the thing. Here's what I think. Here's what I believe is that this is Michael Page is the equivalency to the oblique kick. Michael Page is the equivalency to that low calf kick. Michael Page is the equivalency to that thing that has now just showed up, and we don't, as the world of UFC and those fighters, we don't know how to deal with that yet. Remember how that oblique kick, when it first showed up, people were using it, only a couple, but it was taking dudes out. John Jones used it fantastically. Mm-hmm. This lower calf kick, right? We see what it's doing and how it's debilitating people. We saw what it did this past weekend on UFC 299 with leg kicks. And we talk about how this hasn't implemented itself into the world of like Muay Thai fighting as of yet. Not enough. They're using it here, but we didn't know how to deal with it. Now people are starting to check their kicks more. Starting to, when they throw that low kick, they're starting to come over the top a little bit more. They're trying to figure it out. Michael Page is that thing right now where people are going to try to figure it out. Kevin Holland could not figure it out last night. He got smothered, wasn't able to get into that groove, right, where he should have been able to fight. He also did not try hard enough, in my opinion, to take Michael Venom Page down to the ground. I
just think he was frustrated all night. I think
100%. You could see it on his face. He was
Yeah.
like, what is this?
Like, I don't think Kevin was worried about getting knocked out. I think Kevin was more worried about getting stunted on.
Kevin's never worried about getting knocked out.
No, he just doesn't want to get embarrassed.
Right.
And that's what I think was happening. And I think that internally had to have been what was going on in his head, is that I'm being made to look like a fool out here. So by the time the third round came around, Holland just looked like he was dejected from the fight, but he was still in it. He just didn't look mentally there anymore.
Yep. He was like, he's a lot faster than we thought he was going to be. He's not fighting the way that I'm used to fighters fighting against.
Can't keep him down.
No, it was crazy. So I'm interested to see what they do with him next. Now, and I do want to talk about this, what's next, but let's talk about very quickly before we run out of time here, the main event. The main event was Sean O'Malley and Cheeto Vera, that everybody thought, it was the only loss, unless you ask Sean O'Malley, the only loss that he had was against Cheeto before, but it was because of an injury, whatever.
No, the Sugar Commission came out and said that if he won that fight last night, that they would remove that off of his record. So as far as we know, the Sugar Commission took away his loss. He's got 0 losses.
Is that headed up by the same people that used to head up the Chael Sonnen Commission?
No, this is the Sugar Show Commission. They're completely different group, but they're all run on booger sugar. Yes.
Listen, what did you think of Sean O'Malley's performance this past weekend?
I think it's fantastic. I think Sean O'Malley is a superstar. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I think what he did last night at the club was more work than he did inside that octagon, because everything he does doesn't look like work anymore. It just looks like routine to him. He is so fluid. He is like water. Well, that man is in and out. We're talking about Michael Venom Page and his strategy of getting in and out on guys. I think Sean O'Malley takes that. No, it's not as flashy. It's flashy in its own right, but it's not as flashy as a Michael Venom Page. But I think he is just as much of a conundrum as Michael Venom Page is on his feet. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be harder and harder to figure out every time we see him fight.
Well, he managed to get Cheeto to bite on everything, and that was the biggest
thing.
Like every single feint, he managed to get him to bite on, and what it did is Cheeto froze up. He stood and shelled up, thinking that he could probably weather the storm a little bit and then fire back on the return. As soon as O'Malley would come in, he'd cover up, take a couple or whatever, and as O'Malley would have to back away to reset, that's when Cheeto thought that he would be able to do something. It didn't work out that way, because every single time, with the exception of a handful, O'Malley was in, he was out, and there was nothing there for Cheeto to hit. It wasn't until Cheeto decided to make it ugly, right, that he had any kind of success. His best shot was the last shot of the entire fight, 5 rounds, where he hit Sean O'Malley with a body punch right to the guts, and you watch it in slow motion, and it's on the inhale. So it may, like, that one could have done some damage, given a little bit more time. I don't think that Cheeto knew what he was in for, and it clearly showed. Sean O'Malley is definitely a champion in that division. He's definitely a superstar. There's no doubt about it.
Did you see Cheeto's face, the comparison afterwards? So they had a before and after, and it looked like the reversal from like a Jenny Craig commercial.
Yeah.
Like if it was like, this is what you look like before, and this is like his face was so swollen and so damaged. There's got to be orbital issues as of last night.
There's no, you even saw, like, okay, so first he takes that knee that I don't know how people could even walk through that. And then you saw what happened. Like, he ended up getting the shot in the eye, and he's trying to blink it out and blink it out and blink it out. Guaranteed there is some kind of damage. If it's not a broken orbital bone, then he has, adamantium skeletal system in his body. It's crazy, because his face should be broken completely. Now,
he's got that Wolverine frame.
That's what I'm saying. But my question for you is, now that we saw this, and this is fantastic because everybody now is super hyped for 300. April is going to be one hell of a month for sports, entertainment, and combat sports. I don't know how, like, May is going to be the drizzling shits, ladies and gentlemen, because everything, we got WrestleMania, we've got UFC 300. What are we doing in May?
May, we've got Matt Riddle coming up for Destiny Wrestling. He's going to be in town for 2 different shows. Matt Riddle. Check out DestinyWrestling.ca now and get your tickets for the Matt Riddle shows.
Unbelievable.
That's
Speaking
what's going
of guys
on in May.
done both, there's the perfect crossover is Matt Riddle from wrestling to MMA.
Dude,
Let me
I'd
ask
love
you
to see
this
him go
before
back.
we're out of time. What do you do now with the 3 biggest questions coming out of UFC 299? What do you do with Michael Page?
Keep feeding him competition like Kevin Holland and give him two more gatekeeper fights and then see how he gets through those.
I say you give him Stephen Thompson next.
Perfect.
That's the fight. What do you do with Sean O'Malley?
Sean O'Malley, I do disagree with Dana. I think you fly him out to Spain, and I think you move him up in a weight class for a special feature with Ilya Tapuria.
I think that's where the money fight is. But of course, if this was a real ranking system, he has to fight Murad.
Yeah.
And finally, what do you do with Dustin Poirier?
Dustin Poirier can do whatever he wants. At this point, when you're taking in 2 bonuses a night like he just did last night, you do whatever you want. I think you if you're not already getting paid pay-per-view points, work that deal out on your end because you are drawing money now.
Is the title shot done for Dustin Poirier?
No, I think it's still there. I think he needs another fantastic finish like that on an up and comer or a ranked fighter. The title shot says.
I think you give him the winner of Oliveira and Sarukian, and that's one hell of a matchup right there. And that
I've got one question before we roll this ride out for you. How upset were you when they got done playing the UFC 300 pay-per-view and they finally gave us the lineup last night? I seen the UFC 300 come up. How disappointed were you? Or side question, were you as disappointed as I was when I didn't hear, "Can you see me now?" And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, if this incident didn't just happen with Endeavor and Vince McMahon, there was a good chance you would have heard that at the end of that trailer because Brock was supposed to be fighting at UFC 300. He is not now. I believe they were going to give him Tom Aspinall. That's the rumor mill turning and the grapevines and all that good stuff. But we're not getting Brock anymore. Were you as upset as I was?
No,
Okay.
I'm not, because I think that 300 is going to be one hell of a card anyways. And I think that you have the emergence of a brand new heavyweight who made his debut at 299, all 6'7", Butch Reed, blindside baby Huey looking, throwing bombs, throwing like Demolition Man. This was clearly a Demolition Man moment, throwing bombs while falling backwards to get his balance. Man, it's a great time to be alive and watch the fights and to watch pro wrestling again. I'm a fan. What about you?
Speaking of fights and pro wrestling and balance, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in on YouTube, and thank you for tuning in on any podcast provider. If you're listening on S-Mini Radio, shouts out to you guys. You should probably take your Facebook group and delete yourselves because you guys are toxic in there. But otherwise, we love the living shit out of you. Shouts out to everybody over at S-Mini Radio, Smack Daddy's Boris, Collision Catch-Up, Raw Dogs, all those guys. It's just great over there. Do you got anything you want to plug before we roll this ride out, Chris?
Listen, you know where you can catch us each and every week. Be sure to follow us on all of those podcast providers. Be sure to follow us on X or Twitter or whatever it is. I think it's X today. Who knows
We're
what
on
it's
there
gonna be tomorrow. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share all of that fun stuff over on YouTube. That's how we get this algorithm thing going. Outside of that, you know it as well as I do, ladies and gentlemen. You ain't going to be able to do a lot of things in life that you want to do, but that some things are going to get thrown at you in a really bad way. Always remember, keep your eyes open, tuck your chin.